Hello everybody, and welcome to the Reglow space. Okay, just testing sound really quick. So we're going to start with our ritual, entering into the plane of the imagination before we begin our stitches. Standing on the land with the sky above and the sea that surrounds, I call in the elements of fire, water, earth, and air. As we raise our imagination flag, and here we are. So thank you for being here with us. Pipple and I have been working on this mask together, and all of you who have been tuning in have been a part of this process. So thanks. Thanks for reflecting with us and reweaving the fabric of consciousness, whatever that might mean to you. And I'm curious about what that means to you. If you feel like sharing. Yeah, so we have this. And we have our wing. We've been calling these parts our wings, and this is what we're going to be working on today. Are the wings and the attachments to the wings. Oops. The attachments to the wings that we'll put on the veil. So we have felt in what has been emerging here with this mask, and what began emerging was the realm of grandmother's velvet garden. And so that has been the series where we've been exploring that space behind the veil and the edges of the veil, and then the surface texture of all of those, and the elements that come together. And as I stitch along and clip and trim, as I am this red thread currently, you may let it be, or may you let it be an analogy to your current experience. Rooted in the present moment, it can speak to wherever you're at, as we're constantly shifting as much as we allow ourselves to, and as much as we focus on that aspect of life. And here attaching this wing. I will start inside, tucking my tails into the wing and lift off. Lift off with the worm in the mouth, the bird's wings. So is the red thread like the worm? Is the red thread like a symbol of the worm? So here in this plane of imagination, we can enter into a lucid state of imaginations as a way to process different aspects of ourselves and to witness them and acknowledge them and release parts that need to be released, and then other parts will be tended. And so stitching along like a bird might be in flight, like the sound of the birds. And the interconnectivity of the birds. As they might flock together, as they might be along their path, the only bird on a branch. As the people watching them speculate about the motion and the movement of the birds, and we wonder how they move so rhythmically and in tune through the air, and also through cycles of time, and also through the regions, through the seasons. And I'm reaching this corner where the wing meets the strip of velvet. Wonder, I should zoom in more. Here, right here, where the wing, the corner of the wing is meeting the corner of the velvet strip, the velvet bridge across the nose. The intelligence of scent, of the sense, and what it reveals. Bridging and tucking in. Now I'm tucking in all the edges of the pleat in the headband, like the folding. The folding. As the fold in the pleat folds into the wing, bound, the edges bound inside the wing. And we continue to stitch this, holding in place. Holding in place. Where the wing rings and wraps around. Okay, that is the wrap. Also in this space, if you are stitching along, I'd love to hear your analogies or your questions or any relative comment you might have in your practice as we make time to be in this space together. And with ourselves, all of ourselves. and thinking about our consciousness in the present moment. Think about what is apparent, and also kind of the obscurity of social codes or like imaginary codes where we find ourselves being morphed into something that does not represent where we're at. And even in that complexity, acknowledging that which is present. And accepting it. And moving through it. So I'm moving through it here, we're moving through it here with our stitches and our double red thread wrapping all the way around as the wing, wrapping all the way around each side of the fold and the pleat, but not within the pleat. But our stitches did go through to it. Well, actually, they didn't really. I mean, not these ones. Before they did on the basting stitch, but these ones just wrapped around. Knowing that the outer layers of the pleat will hold it. And now we make our way down the side of the middle of the wing of the silver shining wing as it reaches out beyond the cheek of the mask. Almost where the smile or the frown of the expression, our face, the expression on our face, an extension of that, as it might be in response to a thought. And as that thought glides in through the air, such as our wings, and we navigate ourselves through the extensions. We navigate through time, finding ourselves in the present. As the thoughts flow through, we don't have to identify with them. And we just allow them to flow through, simply noticing. And breathing. As I am holding the folded edges of this wing as they come together to be sealed with the red thread, the needle moves through. The needle is present, and the thread is somewhat of a path. It's something that can polarize the start and end of our experience between time and time. Each stitch its own opportunity, each stitch its own breath, its own feeling, its own thought that is fluid. And then it makes me wonder if water is charged with emotion, and which is a frequency, and I am made of water, and the moisture from my fingertips becomes absorbed by the rayon of this crafted wing. And am I charging the wing with my emotions and with a frequency? And how does it resonate in relation to any other frequency? Is it flexible? Is it resilient? Is it open? Is there space? Is there empty space for the emergence? From the source? And if so, as I am twisting round and round this wing, The space could be anywhere. It could be inside of this wing. It could be in the air that flows through the fibers. The space could be in the emotion itself that is evoked. As the mask of grandmother's velvet garden takes form, takes a shape, and so I want you to see. And so I sew, twisting down this wing, twisting and wrapping, holding in place, tightening and balancing all the way down to where the tip of the wing will be. Where the extension reaches capacity of its own being. But seated within or without, seated upon, seated is the charge. What is seated? Let us fold. It seems to me that the charge is somewhat of a seating. And so in that seemingly seedling, we tuck these edges of reason and wonder folded in towards themselves, and I must try this one. I must try this again. Inside the wing, folded within the wing, are the edges. Does the wing glide along the edges? the wing, bound with the double red stitches, and now we make our knot, our double knot loop twice. And we tuck our tails. And trim. So let's come back up to Pipple. And see where these wings will hold the veil. These are so funny. They're like little arms. They are like little wings. One side is more curly with the stitches that are all curly. And the other its very own being. So what will be, what will hold the edge? What will hold the veil? Something here to here. We're gonna make a tack. So we know where to begin. As we're draping these plastics and their characters within them show us where they want to be. Okay. So if this, I wonder if this silky material will even have any kind of grip on it to hold it if I use this to be the loops. I think that it does. So if I just enclose this entire piece, I think that, well, no, I'm gonna have to do it. I'm gonna have to make 2 individual strips so that it doesn't unravel, but that's all right. Cutting it in half. The scrap from the bottom of the mask on the inside. Inside here. Seeing how each of these pieces start wider and then get smaller, and I'm thinking of how the loop will be layering. When we attach the loop, one side will be like, they'll be like this. Something like this. So that can you see? So that the upper layer is smaller and the bottom layer is wider, and that will be what it will be. With the green thread, it's interesting because I'm thinking about the role of a narrator in a story, and like who decides who is the narrator. Is it the narrator just agreeing to do it, or is there some kind of conviction or message or feeling, or just something within them, like a calling or something that gives them meaning? And oh, I didn't tuck my tails, but that's okay because I can do it now. So, but then a narrator, like, how is a narrator different from a channeler? A narrator might have a clear idea of a story that's already been formulated retrospectively, or maybe even imagined beyond the construct of time. And then And then thinking of a channeler who might channel something from that is coming from their own relationship with the other world, whatever that might be. And I'm feeling some tenderness in my finger, and I think that I can just let it drip out and drip into the void, and then I fill my finger back up with golden toroidal light energy, and then seal it off. Clearing as if anybody's pointing blame, along. So as I feel like this kind of quality of this part of the garden that I'm working on, this imaginary etheric realm of grandmother's velvet garden. Here there is, where I'm stitching, is something that will hold, that the wing will wrap through to secure the veil. And it almost feels like a kind of harness, like this whole thing feels kind of like a harness. And so who is harnessing and what is being harnessed? And when I think about the power button that's on the forehead of the mask, it makes me feel that the individual is harnessing their own energy. But why does it need to be a harness? What can transition that from a harness to being something that where the source pours through it? And then that is the expression of the existence. Harnessing makes me think of some kind of leverage. But then when I think of the matrix, that is also being transformed. But I think that it starts within our minds. It starts within our relationships with ourselves and each other. So releasing the energy of any kind of blame, and then returning to our own power source. then people talk about justice and how we are interconnected, and so how can we honor that interconnectivity? Listening, to Pebble, listening to opening our imaginations and listening to even the needle, even the walls, our questions are being answered. I almost feel like the question comes to mind once the answer is available. Like that has been the next unfoldment or stage of the journey. The journey through our own being. So, as we sow and improvise our own narration to our lives, what becomes revealed as our awareness, as our multifaceted essence is acknowledged. stitching through that awareness, twisting down, twisting down. The open-ended field becomes unopen-ended as we realize what we have been neglecting. Parts of ourselves that have tried to escape into other planes and other realms and have done so. Do we then lose access? Do we then lose touch with our wholeness? And how do we regain that connection? How do we reweave our narrative in honor of that aspect of ourselves? And the context is existence and imagination and spirit and consciousness, relationships, anything that comes into our awareness. Sitting with it. Okay, and now we have reached the edge where the ends will join. The two ends will join, and I'm thinking about how I will do that. Do I want to see how one end is wider than the other? Can you see? This end is wider, and so I'm wondering, do I want to scrunch that end into the smaller end, or do I want the smaller end to be in the larger end and then have like extra bulk, extra room? Part of me likes the idea of the volume that will be created if I scrunch it. If I scrunch the wider end. So let's try that. Scrunching the wider end into here. Okay, we did it. And now we will go through securing each place. Securing each side of that which is scrunched. That which is scrunched into here. That will secure the wing. All right, knotting it off now. Knotting off the sides. Oh dear. I actually made a hole in the material, in the gray material, so I'm gonna stitch that. I'm going to tuck the tails. Make a knot. Stitch around. Stitch around. And make a knot. And tuck the tails and hope that I don't cut another hole in it this time. This time I won't cut so close to the material. And same with this side. Okay. So there is our loop. Loop, it wraps around and it twists in its own loop. Okay, Now back to Pipple. And it will come here somehow. So I will just hold it in place until next time. That's for the other side. So thank you for joining us today. And we will lower the veil, lower the flag, and release this plane. So we thank the fire, the water, the earth, and the air. We thank you and release you all. Until next time.